We are back with more NFL coverage, and in this one, I will be going over a few developments, but primarily the mock draft that I have done in days prior. Obviously, the 2025 NFL draft is quite literally later on tonight. So, naturally, teams are going to be scrambling even towards the start of the draft and even during it to figure out who exactly they are trying to select. Obviously, this year, especially in positions like the running back room and wide receivers, edge rushers, positions like that, there's an abundance of them. And honestly, in some cases, you can't really go wrong with who you choose. But at the same time, in a given moment's notice, you're granted just one selection. So who are some of these teams going to get? The mock draft is limited to the first round, and while I've already done it and wanted to get it out days prior, that didn't end up happening. Still, if I can get this out at a decent time, it should come just before the start of the NFL draft. So, to kick things off, the Titans hold the number 1 overall pick in this draft, and with them, I have them selecting Cameron Ward, quarterback from the University of Miami of Florida. Now, over the past few months, this has become a foregone conclusion. People have thought that Travis Hunter originally would have been a candidate here, but over time, that just made less and less sense. So then you had to determine who would it be between Ward, or would Sanders even go here, or would Abdul Carter end up here? The thing with Abdul Carter in this situation is that as an edge rusher for fit, it would be perfect because they did just lose Harold Landry III this offseason in a trade in a free agency period that saw him move to the Patriots with former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. So you're definitely trying to replace him in some way, and what better way to do so, honestly, than a player who is considered a very great edge rusher in Carter. The thing with that is, as well, though, despite how great he can be, his injury situation has probably hindered him just a little bit. So no matter what team selects him early on in this draft, there are going to be questions surrounding that, of course. And he's been inquired about it. He still has to get work done on it to this point, I believe. So you find yourself not necessarily falling in love with that the same way you once were. Cameron Ward does have the potential to be the best quarterback in this draft class. Now, that's not necessarily saying a whole bunch because, especially compared to last year, when there were literally 6 quarterbacks drafted within the first 12 picks, this quarterback class is not as strong. I think that the Titans do believe, with a lot of the pro day stats he's racked up, and a lot of the pre-draft interviews they've had with him during this process, I do strongly believe they think that he is their guy. And also, even if there were some reservations there, let me tell you this right now. You don't want another season of Will Levis under center. I think it is time to move on. Like, sure, you could shore up the trenches and things like that, but you still need a quarterback to lead your team. And honestly, while the Titans' offensive line, they're all young players, so they're trying to figure things out, but it was a combination of things. They did struggle, but at the same time, it didn't help that Will Levis was such an erratic decision maker. Let's just call it what it is, first and foremost. That is the fatal flaw in his game. He is just a player that makes boneheaded decisions left and right that literally every single game of the season killed potential momentum for the Titans. Within seconds of an action going through, it's like that's not a way to operate as a football team. And it just went from bad to completely worse to where he got benched for damn Mason Rudolph. So I honestly think with that benching, with how Brian Callahan was calling him out on multiple occasions, essentially with some of his sentiments in post-game press conferences and things like that, I think that experiment with Levis is, bro, it's done. He is as good as done in Tennessee as the starting quarterback. If you need him as a backup, fine. But if you can go out and get what you think is a sure thing in Cam Ward, I suppose you just take your chance. Because something's got to give at some point. Will Levis is certainly not the answer. So that would be my selection there. At number 2, the Browns hold this pick in the 25 NFL draft. And with this, I have them selecting Abdul Carter, edge rusher from Penn State. I just see this as a perfect fit with a player with high upside and potential in Carter to be paired up on the opposite side of a man in Myles Garrett that has just ain't the long-term extension with that team. You know, like I would like that a ton. It just makes too much sense to me. Like quarterbacks and things like that could possibly be picked up later, but the Browns would have done it to themselves, I suppose. It just doesn't make sense to me to go out and get a quarterback this early in the draft. Because again, the consensus is apparently that I guess Ward, Sanders, and then it's really just up for debate about who the third guy is. There are only a select few guys that would get drafted in the first round here, and especially that early on. With all that uncertainty looming, why attempt to swing and miss on one of, I guess, the higher ranked quarterbacks in this class when you already are shelling out money to quarterbacks regarded as somewhat high talent quarterbacks in their respective draft classes? Like, I'm not saying, I'm not saying that as far as the 22 draft class goes, that Kenny Pickett is a top-end talent. But what I am saying is that with the Steelers making the choice to select him in the first round of that draft, they thought he had potential. I don't know why they thought he did. But you're in a situation where you have a former 20th or like 22nd overall pick in your quarterback room. Not to mention, too, you still have Deshaun Watson on the roster. And again, even with Haslam now expressing regret over things, he's still there. You're still paying him money. Why would you get a young quarterback and bring him in there? It's just too flooded right now with potential. It just causes so much chaos and conflict to just try to compound such a, let's just put it like this. If you select one of these quarterbacks here, what you're essentially doing is just creating a loaded quarterback room with absolutely no substance whatsoever. Kenny Pickett, even if he gets a chance, he's not going to do anything. He's proven that he is not capable of leading a football team. I think that was made very clear. He's already proven that. Deshaun Watson has regressed massively. And again, now to the point where even ownership is acknowledging that it was such a horrible whiff on their end. You just don't need to stockpile like this. And honestly, you wouldn't be in position to do so, I suppose, if the quarterback room or if the quarterback class was loaded. You have no definite answer here. So you're just going to place yourself in the same cycle repeatedly. Like at that point, if you are truly considering a quarterback, the Browns should just wait until later in the draft, or they should just save it. Just let things go to shit this season, because that's probably how it's going to go if Kenny Pickett is leading your team. Just let it happen. Or even, well, they brought Joe Flacco back too. So maybe that's even something. Just play this season out, see how it goes, and see if you can get yourself another reasonable pick in next year's draft in the first round. Because next year's draft is already looking like it offers more promise as far as quarterbacks go. Don't waste it on just all these unknowns, really. And especially with just the second overall pick. Because so many other of these quarterbacks are mocked to go way, and I mean way later. So why even bother taking what could be deemed an aggressive reach? It's not worth it. It just isn't. At number 3, the Giants hold this pick in the 2025 draft, and with that, I have them selecting Mason Graham, interior defensive lineman from Michigan. As an Ohio State fan, I would know the amount of havoc that this man causes single-handedly in the middle of a defensive line. And I think that, again, the Giants have also been mocked to take guys like Shedeur Sanders. It just does not make sense. You already have your 2. They are another team who would very much benefit from just playing out the season and waiting until next year to find a high-end quarterback. Because, again, by that point, both Wilson and Winston, especially Winston, will be on one-year deals at that point. Then you can get a young guy at that point to have them sit under them for that year, and then go all in from there in terms of building up that team. The Giants and Joe Sean probably would try, after missing on Jaden Daniels that badly, they probably would consider just trying to draft a quarterback thinking that they're going to solve the mistake they made last season. You just have to see the course. And honestly, with a player like Mason Graham who has this kind of talent, you're placing him in that interior of your defensive line alongside Dexter Lawrence II. As a complementary piece, he is already a massive upgrade from a lot of the other guys that they had in their rotation at the defensive line position or D-tackle position last season. Like why not go for that? I think that is a tremendous move to make. But again, ownership, and honestly, Dable's going to have a say in it too. I guess it wouldn't be too surprising if they go with Sanders, but they shouldn't pass up on that opportunity. I'm not going to lie to you. At the number 4 overall pick, the Patriots have this one, and I have them selecting Travis Hunter from Colorado. Obviously, he is both a cornerback and a wide receiver, but with his comments, there has been quite the conversation going around, and revolves around whether or not teams would actually be willing to let him play both positions. The thing with the first 3 teams here, I think the Giants also made it clear that they probably would give the keys to Travis Hunter. I guess the Browns did too. But as far as the Patriots go, I mean, could they pass up on him? Sure. They probably have other needs that they're looking towards. They probably need to bolster their offensive line a little more. Seeing as I believe that David Andrews is now gone, you probably want to find something there. And, on defense, your linebackers are set at this point. Honestly, you'd probably be looking for a safety rather than a cornerback / wide receiver. But I think that Travis Hunter's versatility would pay dividends for this team. Because not only could he serve as a complementary piece to Stephon Diggs in a perfect universe, but he could also serve as a grand 1A, 1B type cornerback if he is still as great of a cornerback prospect as we are believing that he is coming into this draft. Him at the cornerback position on the outside, along with Christian Gonzalez, who has already been a shutdown machine, that would be fucking dangerous. I can't hold you. That would be dangerous. So that's where I would see the Patriots going towards. If they don't, it's okay. Things happen. But I don't really expect Travis Hunter to fall far. I really don't. Unless, again, there are teams who are up and, even if he's still available, they just do not believe that they are willing to conform to the concept of playing this man on both sides of the ball. If they're not comfortable with that, then hey, they'll move on. But you're not going to see him fall down too far. That's the one thing I can guarantee you. The Jaguars have the 5th overall pick in this 2025 draft, and with it, I have them selecting Tyrell McMichael, wide receiver out of Arizona. I mean, this man has been killing college football in, I guess, the Pac-12 and then the Big 12 over the past couple of seasons. Even if you have questions about the competition, he is just truly a dominant force. I mean, bro, that kind of size, he stands at 6'4", and he moves so fucking fast down the field. He's got the hands, he's got the athleticism, all of it is there. And to have those kinds of gifts with any wide receiver, as we've seen over just the past half decade, like, look at a guy like DK Metcalf, for example. That combination of physical tools is going to be very desirable to teams that need it. And even if they don't, if you just want to bolster your damn wide receiver core, getting a person like that certainly helps. In terms of the Jaguars, they need it. In essence. Yes, Brian Thomas Jr. has come along very well for them. He had a tremendous rookie season, and he's going to be a guy that you want to build around. So, what better way to do that than by giving him an upgrade on the opposite side of the field? Because whatever the hell Christian Kirk was doing last season wasn't even nearly enough for the contract that he was getting paid. You get someone in Tyrell McMichael who is probably going to come in as a potential number 2 wide receiver on this team and already be a massive upgrade over him. With that kind of skill set, the perfect complementary piece to what Brian Thomas Jr. is doing. Because the way I see it as well, they gave Parker Washington a lot of action last year, but he, with a smaller frame, would probably work best in the slot or as a rotational wide receiver. And then outside of those three, everyone else is up for question. So they need other positions as well. For example, I don't really know what Travis Etienne Jr.'s situation looks like with this team. So any number of things could happen there. They could go trenches. They could go with a running back. But I feel that that is the most direct upgrade they can make in the moment. At number 6, the Raiders hold this pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, and with it, I have them selecting Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. Now, other mock drafts as of late have Jeanty going elsewhere, and the Raiders getting trench players on the offensive line. I could see that, but I think that Jeanty is too great of a running back prospect to pass up at this position, especially if he is still on the board and the Raiders still have that pick, barring anything crazy to start off the draft. If they draft trenches, okay, but let's get something straight right now. No matter what position they select, it needs to be for the betterment of that rushing attack. Because that rushing attack for the Raiders last season, I can't even call it an attack. They didn't have any fucking bite. They were dead last in yards per game on the ground. And surely had one of the worst marks in terms of team yards per carry. And again, with the running back room that you have right now, I feel like you'd be banking on a lot. Like, I believe, because I can check the Raiders roster again, but you mean to tell me that keeping Zamir White there and having Raheem Mostert in that backfield is going to... Like, how do you see that in your backfield and be content with that? Because, again, this is no disrespect to Mostert, but he is simply getting older. Even if you put him in a running back by committee system, you cannot give him too many touches because you're going to wear him down. And he already has had so many injury problems in the past. Then you get to Zamir White, and we're talking about a dude who started 8 games played in 8 games, started in 5, and had just 183 rushing yards. Maybe, again, this offers him a chance to get a full season of starter reps in, but surely you can't look at that at face value and believe that that is the guy for your immediate future. So I think the best way to handle that is simply to get only a person who was unanimously voted as the best running back in college football last season. Like, why wouldn't you choose that? Then, to top things off even, you have Sincere McCormick, Dylan Laub, Chris Collier, and Isaiah Spiller from the Chargers in your running back room right now. Now, all those guys aren't going to make the 53-man roster, but that's still not a desirable running back room that will invoke any sort of strong emotion in any opponent they face next season. Let them take that damn lineup anywhere next season and try to play with that. they're going to get clamped again. It might be worse. So you have to make that happen, in my opinion. At 7, Jets hold this pick in the 25 draft, and with it, I have them selecting Armand Membo, tackle from Missouri. Now, initially, being a Seahawks fan here and hearing about him, I would have loved him to be drafted by the Seahawks tonight. The thing about that is, the man killed the fucking combine, and his draft stock shot all the way the fuck up. So now it's just like he's not gonna fall outside of the top 10. And the Jets, in now losing Tyron Smith, granted, he had been injured for a good majority of last season anyways, but to bring in that kind of replacement is pretty good, especially with the potential that he has. Saw something that said in his time in Missouri, or I think in the last season or so, there were around 391 pass blocks, and he allowed just a single sack. That is tremendous. Surely, you're not bringing Aaron Rodgers back, of course, but no matter who comes in at that pick, or at the quarterback position for next season, you may be in good hands if you have a pass protector like that. And trust me, that is something that the Jets have been searching for a long time. Honestly, any single one of their positions. I remember for a time they had Brandon Shell, but he had dropped off a little bit. Like, honestly, you if things pan out a certain way, you're looking at potentially one of the better offensive linemen that they have recruited since they recruited Nick Mangold. We're talking about decades apart. We're talking about something that is decades apart here. I ain't saying, again, I'm not bringing up Mangold's name to say that Membo is going to be on the Hall of Fame track. That would be fucking crazy. But I would tell you that he could make an immediate impact. And again, there are going to be some growing pains naturally, because on the other side, I think you still have Fasciano. So they're going to have to work things out, of course. But if you continue to hone into his strengths and bring him along, well, it could be pretty fucking smooth. Okay. The Panthers hold the number 8 pick in the 25 draft, and with it, I have them selecting Jalen Walker, linebacker, edge rusher from Georgia. I think it's ideal. Now, again, keep in mind too that he could be a hybrid, so I don't necessarily know if he'll occupy too many snaps in the middle of the linebacking core. But what I do know is this: the Panthers need those reinforcements in the trenches. You saw what happened as soon as Derek Brown collapsed to injury last season. They could not stop a lick consistently. They were just getting gashed left and right. Still, by the end of things, they were able to hold their own, but you don't want to continue having those rough stretches, especially if you're trying to turn things around in Carolina. It also hurt them, too, that they lost Shaq Thompson this offseason. He had been a mainstay, a damn near face of that franchise for so long. And he, coming into the draft, was seen as versatile as well. coming out of Washington. So it feels to me like the Panthers would try to, I'm not going to say replicate it, but you want to fill up that void in the best way you can. And they hadn't necessarily made any moves like that in free agency. So to get someone with as much potential as Jalen Walker has at this spot would not be the worst idea out there. The Saints hold the number 9 overall pick in the 2025 draft. And with it, I have them selecting Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado. I had seen this on another mock draft, and to be honest, I could not agree more with it. Because no matter what the situation looks like with Derek Carr, he is not the answer. Like, Loomis literally doesn't even know. He confirmed that Derek Carr had a shoulder injury, but he had nothing to say about the ramifications of it, about all of the surrounding circumstances relating to it. And so it's like, is he really going to be able to come back and perform? Like, they can't even give us a full answer. And I don't know if it would make sense to have Spencer Rattler continue to play quarterback for your team. Let's be honest, man. I mean, he just wasn't good last season. Maybe you give him a chance under Kellen Moore's offense. I mean, he does have a pretty decent history working with quarterbacks. So, that. Also, the way I see it as well, too, is that if you're going to bring in a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, who is one of the more brilliant minds on that side of the ball, you would probably want to move on from Rattler or Jake Heiner. Oh, don't even get me started on Jake Heiner, dude. But seriously, those quarterbacks were under the supervision of the old regime here. Let's call it what it is. And they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Dennis Allen didn't know what the fuck he was doing. That's why the fuck he got fired in the first place. And then Darren Reitze, obviously being a special teamer, he's not necessarily going to understand all the ins and outs of how to commandeer an offense. Well, we're working with a person in Kellen Moore who literally played the fucking quarterback position, who knows the ins and outs of how an offense works and literally just led the team to a fucking Super Bowl victory off of that fucking knowledge alone. I think, then, that if you want to see Kellen Moore's brilliance on full display, you're going to want to draft a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders here. Obviously, he's still going to have his weaknesses, of course. He needs to make quicker reads if he's not going to have mobility that you would want in a sort of dual threat quarterback in this day and age, because that's favored, of course. And then, obviously, protection is going to be a gripe as well. Obviously, you just lost Ryan Ramczyk to retirement. So you need to figure out ways to bolster that offensive line as well. Because it was struggling under Derek Carr also. You don't want to have that again, especially with someone far younger than Derek Carr and Shedeur Sanders here. But that's where I think they should, the direction they should go in. The Bears hold the 10th overall pick, and with this, I have them selecting Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia. You can put him anywhere he needs to be on defense. But if anything, I see this as them trying to balance the play of another safety and pair him up with Jaquan Brisker. That's how I see this. Because Jaquan Brisker can do a lot of the same things, but it's been up to question over the past few years, to be completely honest. It's not that he's a bad safety. He's just still got a lot to work out before they can really start to deploy him on every single portion of the field. And honestly, from what I have seen from Jaquan Brisker at times, he moves like a linebacker, not necessarily a safety. So if you want someone to truly play back, I think that Starks is more than capable of doing that, and also providing most anything else for you whenever it is needed, to be completely honest. They could go offensive lineman here, and that would make sense as well, though they've had quite the stacked free agency in terms of getting linemen. There have also been mocks stating that they get Tyler Warren, and I just don't see it. I mean, yes, obviously with the wide receiver talent that you have brought in, Cole Kmet might see a dip in production, but at the same time, he is there, and you haven't necessarily shown that you want to move on from him. So what are you going to do? You going to just turn him into a blocker? No, he's still going to be there in some capacity. I just don't see them stockpiling at the tight end position. Though, you know what? Let me check this out, because if this is the case, then this will be everything that I need to know. Yeah, there haven't necessarily been any signs of this, but I will say that maybe in later rounds, given whatever is going down with Mercedes Lewis, we have no idea. If they finally choose to move on from that old man, they could get a tight end to take over then, because at that point you're going to need it. You don't want to just have Cole Kmet out there, and you would have Mercedes Lewis come in for blocking, of course. You've got to have some contingency plan there. And maybe it might not be Cole Kmet in that instance. I can understand it later, but not now, especially when a player like Malachi Starks, who is that versatile at this position, is still on the board, to be honest. At 11, the 49ers hold this pick in the 25 NFL draft, and with it, I have them selecting Walter Norland, interior defensive lineman from Mississippi. I've heard bits of things about Nolan, not necessarily too much, but I see this as a matter of need. He was the best available at the time that I made this selection, and they are coming off of losing one of their key acquisitions in years past in free agency, with Javon Hargrave moving on to the Vikings this offseason. So they are definitely trying to shore that up. And, you know, it's just been a long-standing issue for them over the past few years. Obviously, they had DeForest Buckner, they had Eric Armstead, and those guys just up and dipped. So now you're really just trying to find complementary pieces once more. Although I think, yeah, so you're definitely going to go with a lineman here. Maybe it doesn't have to be Walter Nolan, but again, just simple fit. At 12, the Cowboys hold this pick, and I have them selecting Mike Green, edge rusher from Marshall. Yes, it sounds like a weird pick, but guess what? The Cowboys just draft weird in the first fucking place. How about that? I mean, quite literally. Look at the kinds of players that they have drafted over the past few years. Literally, last year even, they just caught everyone off guard by drafting Marshawn Kneeland, the edge rusher out of Western Michigan. Nobody was expecting that pick whatsoever. Now, obviously, at this position, if things go according to plan, a running back wouldn't necessarily be on the board anymore, even though they surely need one, and they probably should draft one at this spot. The thing is, Mike Green is viewed as a raw talent with some of the highest upside in this draft. He's been shooting up boards after his combine performance and all the like. Like he's certainly got a chance to get drafted pretty early by someone. And I think that the Cowboys might need it. Now, they may think that DeMarvion Overshown might honestly fill that hole, but in reality, it might take a full rotation of players to overcome the loss of DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, granted, he was getting older, so you probably thought you could just move on from him anyways and be fine, but it's not an easy fix. If you can get your hands on Green, though, and he does come along well, his upside is actually, his potential is actually realized. You've got yourself a great complementary piece alongside Parsons. And then you probably have Overshown getting some snaps there at times, or just as a general outside linebacker, which could be absolutely wild. It would certainly shock me if they actually go through with this. But at the same time, I would understand where they are coming from in the moment. Now, obviously, again, with him being a project player here, only time will tell if he is really able to capitalize off of that. But the hype is real. The hype is real. At 13, the Dolphins hold this pick, and with it, they select Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. Once more, being an Ohio State fan, I fucking hated just how good this motherfucker was. Yes, there's a general consensus out there, and granted that he won the award as well, Jahdae Barron is considered to be by many the best cornerback in college football, but I would have reason to believe that Will Johnson has that edge over him. I don't know. It just seems like, in terms of technique, in general coverage even, he has a glaring advantage over Barron. You look at Barron, I guess, and you see the ball skills and athleticism, but it helps at times to combine all that with just having very great football IQ. And that's where I think Will Johnson stands out the most. He's also just like, oh my gosh. At times, he can offer versatility too. Like, I've seen him on multiple occasions be able to generate pressure. Now, granted, that's just a testament to how Michigan runs their team, but he certainly has that ability to him as well. And with what it's looking like for the Dolphins right now, because apparently they're in line to make a boatload of trades, including potentially trading away Jalen Ramsey. If that stands, you're going to need a replacement for that immediately. And what better way to do that immediately than get Will Johnson, if he's still there? Like, come on now. At 14, the Colts had this pick, and with it, I actually have them selecting Jahad Campbell, linebacker, edge rusher from Alabama. Now, in some of the past mock drafts that I've seen, and even with just talking about how I think the draft will shape up, I had them getting Tyler Warren here, which would have been very good to pair him up alongside Mo Alley Cox in that system, and honestly be able to use him as a potential wide receiver in certain formations. Certainly wouldn't hurt them at all. But with them losing a guy in EJ Speed, who led them in not led them in tackles, but was one of the better tacklers in the league last season, surprisingly enough, you have to find a replacement for that immediately. Because I don't think any of their other linebackers, Sansper, Zaire Franklin, can truly replicate that right now. Jihad Campbell has certainly been getting a lot of buzz over the past year or so. And honestly, with his production at Alabama, barring injury, he has certainly lived up to that and then some. Now, I could see him going later in the first round as well, but I can't deny that the Colts need an immediate fix. And when you have a talent like Jihad Campbell here, knowing that you need trenches and you need front seven talent, the fact that Campbell fills both, you would more than likely go for him here. At the 15th pick, the Falcons hold this one. And with it, I have them selecting Luther Burden III, wide receiver from Missouri. Now, granted, with guys like him, Matthew Golden, and Emeka Egbuka being in the mix, the Falcons probably couldn't go wrong with taking Burden III or Golden. The thing is, Golden... I guess the way I kind of see it, Burden III kind of fits their offense a little better. He is literally one of the best wide receivers in the nation when it comes to yards after the catch. He got a comp compared to DJ Moore. And honestly, in watching some of the games he played at Missouri, it makes perfect sense. You know, he has a decent frame. And you pair that up alongside a man in Drake London that stands that tall, can move that fast, and is quite literally a possession wide receiver whenever you need him to be, because his catch radius is just still that goddamn large. It serves as a pretty good compliment. Now, yes, Darnell Mooney had a very respectable season last year, but at the same time, he fits better in the slot. To have him as a number 2, I don't necessarily like that for the Falcons. Also, you have to think about the fact that they just lost Rondale Moore this offseason. Granted, he wasn't even able to play due to injury. So that was just an unfortunate whiff on their ends, but you can't necessarily control that. Still, to have an element of that with a receiver who has good ball skills, great route running, and that innate ability to make people miss and make dynamic plays down the field to extend those plays and subsequent drives, rather, that is a grand opportunity that I don't think the Falcons can miss here. The Cardinals hold the 16th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, and with it, I have them selecting Jahdae Barron, corner from Texas. Again, Barron, while I don't think that he's the best cornerback in the nation, he's still really fucking great. I mean, I already talked a little bit about some of his strengths here. They've been on full display, and granted, he had more of a chance to show it in the SEC with Texas in the last season. He played so well that he got this recognition from all of these different publications. He's earned that. And his combine was right on par with what we had seen from him, to be honest. It might have hurt him a little bit, but not enough to necessarily drop out of the first half of this particular draft class. The Cardinals also, they don't have a cornerback to speak of. Let's take a look at their current roster, shall we? Because, bro, they literally, you can't tell me that any of the current corners that they have at this point time is truly, truly an elite talent at that position. Like, you literally had fifth string guys and damn near practice squad players on other teams getting starting minutes, starting reps, starting minutes, this ain't the damn NBA, but starting reps on this team. It's like, are we being serious right now? Like, hold on. Let me get here. Okay. So, okay, let's look at C-backs and D-backs. Okay. All right, just go through this whole thing. Just bear with me. Iko Boye Dole, Keitrell Clark, Jaden Davis, Darren Hall, Elijah Jones, Jalen Jones, Max Melton, Sean Murphy Bunting, Starling Thomas V, and Garrett Williams. Sean Murphy Bunting is by far the best cornerback in that room, in that position group. And that's saying a lot. Even he is not that fucking good. They need to get that together. Obviously, Barron by himself could be great, but it feels like as well, given how terrible, how atrocious that is, you might even be in a spot to double up, and I couldn't blame him. But you would start it off by getting a surefire talent, and Barron fits that mold, in my opinion. At 17, the Bengals hold this pick, and I have them drafting Kenneth Grant, interior defensive lineman from Michigan. I don't fucking like him, bro. The whole damn front seven was just filled with top-end talent. You can't deny it, though. Grant, along with Graham, just made life a living hell for fucking quarterbacks and general teams trying to impose their will in the rushing attack. It just was not something that could happen with both of those two clogging up the fucking middle. And the Bengals need that right now. Now, granted, they've tried to have some quick fixes, getting guys like B.J. Hill, I believe, and some other defensive linemen in this free agency period, but they're not necessarily great enough to command full starter reps. You gotta mention, too, that they've already lost Sam Hubbard. Now, granted, he was a defensive end, but you've already gotten weaker there because of his retirement. And then you may very well lose Trey Hendrickson as well. It's a tough spot to be in. Even with Hendrickson being there, all of the attention would be focused on accounting for any outside pass rushing. He's still dominant, but you have to keep them honest in between the running lanes. I think Grant has the capability to do that for this ball club, if need be. At number 18, the Seahawks hold this draft pick in the 25 draft, and with it, I have them selecting Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama. Because the way I see it, the interior of that offensive line is a more glaring issue than any other position. Yes, Will Campbell is still on the board by the time we get to this one. So drafting him probably could have made sense. But the way I see it, again, Abraham Lucas, I believe he plays the right tackle position. He's obviously not the greatest. I'm not going to sit here and act like he is. He has got to go. in one way, shape, or form. The Seahawks cannot retain his services anymore. But at the same time, in that interior, you have just inexperienced guys who don't necessarily show a lot of potential right now. I mean, granted, Oluwatimi, I'll give him a pass. You couldn't anticipate Connor Williams retiring in the early portion of last season, and then as a young center having to come in and take over that mantle so quickly. I'll give him a pass. Under a full offseason of workouts and practice, he could potentially come out better than he did last season. But as far as guys like, Bradford? No. Michael Jarrell? No. They just have not. It hasn't been a good experience for either of those two. And it's got to change. Now, granted, again, if they do this, according to most mocks, this would be deemed a reach. But he seems like he can definitely hold his own weight here. And I would certainly not be opposed to it. Because this damn problem with just having terrible offensive linemen has gone on for too long, and damn it, something has to change. So Booker might very well be the guy to do it for the Seahawks team. At number 19, the Bucs hold this pick, and with it, I have them selecting Landon Jackson, edge rusher from Arkansas. Now, granted, this pick is also deemed as a reach according to most mock drafts. But at the same time, I saw this man's combine, bro. He is a fucking unit, dude. So he could really sneak his way around this particular pick for the Bucs. I do believe that. And honestly, whether it's him or somebody else, they need an edge rusher desperately. Again, Shaq Barrett went through a horrible year as a parent. Fuck him being a football player for this conversation. As a parent, went through one of the worst things imaginable. And while he did try to give it a second go, I think they signed him back. I just don't necessarily think that he can come around with the same kind of fire that he did in his prime years naturally. That kind of thing just sticks with your heart for so much time. It could motivate him. But I just don't know. I feel like if that doesn't go according to plan, it feels only right to just have something in place as a secondary measure. And Landon Jackson could be that guy. Not to mention, too, that Barrett has a short-term deal when we are looking at it from a football lens. He is only getting older. So I don't necessarily think that he would be around for the long term anyways. But with that kind of performance alone, I don't know. I think it would be a calculated risk to end up taking. And again, like I mentioned in my last NFL coverage video, sometimes you gotta make calculated risks. It takes that sometimes. You ain't gonna be successful all the time just playing it safe. You gotta mix it up a little bit. The Bucs could very well do that with their pick here. The Broncos hold the 20th overall pick, and with it, I have them selecting Travion Henderson, running back from Ohio State. Yes, it would be viewed as a reach according to most mock drafts, and yes, this might seem like a biased pick. In reality, the Broncos desperately need a running back, and I do honestly strongly believe, bias aside, that Genty and Henderson are the best running backs in this draft. I will stand on that. The running back class is very deep, but those two, to me, stand out. And if Genty is off the board that early, and you're a team in the Broncos that are trying to keep up in the AFC West, generally speaking, I mean, you had a successful season last year despite a poor outing from Javonte Williams in that season. And then you had to rely on a smaller running back in Jaleel McLaughlin to get the job done. I don't know if that's sustainable at all, especially with him as a lead running back. No. You gotta get somebody at this spot. And I think Travion Henderson's your guy. Do you know what he could do in that offense? As a general threat, like, his home run ability is damn near unmatched when it comes to this class. Just literally multiple plays at Ohio State, he would go from fucking 0 to damn 60 in just a matter of fucking seconds. He makes some of the most elite cuts imaginable from a fucking running back prospect. And then not even just as a pure runner, but out of the backfield this last college football season. In the damn Texas game, you saw that on display. You gotta do it. Like, come on. Seriously, man. Alright. At the 21st overall pick, the Steelers have this pick, and with it, I have them selecting Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU. It would be a perfect fit, which is what I considered when making this selection, because with them losing Dan Moore Jr. to the Titans in free agency, you are trying to fill that hole. And Will Campbell, even with him having a weaker combine than Membo, is still regarded as an interchangeable 1 or 2 overall tackle prospect in this draft. Even with Kelvin Banks Jr. creeping up in there a little bit, you just have to go with the best available option here, and if things go according to plan, Will Campbell would probably fall at this spot. With the 22nd overall pick, I have the Chargers, who hold this pick, selecting Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. Now, granted, again, in making this mock draft, again, I did initially think that the Colts would get him at 14. I, in no way, shape, or form, thought that he would even drop out of the top 15. But yet, here we are. Some of the other mock drafts out there had Colston Loveland getting drafted by this team, which I suppose makes sense given the familiarity he has with Jim Harbaugh and everything. But at the same time, Tyler Warren is head and shoulders above all others in this class. The single best tight end prospect in this class, maybe in decades. And there's a good chance that comparative to someone like Kyle Pitts, who you could argue had that same kind of hype as well, could actually live up to it in the right system. And honestly, you have Warren not only being able to play tight end, but be flexible as a potential wide receiver in an offense that is going to pride itself on balanced football, it would be perfect for a tight end like him. The Packers hold the 23rd overall pick, and with this, I have them selecting James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. Could be interesting. I mean, you have Rashawn Gary there already. You have Edgerrin Cooper emerging as just a general linebacker. So maybe there's a chance that he does not get selected by this team, but at the same point of time, I don't get why everybody has been just losing their interest in him. Like, he has been a very good candidate and very good player at Tennessee for that amount of time. He's got a great release point as well, given how well he did in the combine. You can never have too many edge rushers. And I think the Packers are trying to do as best as they can to keep that unit on point. Also, if you think about it, again, you have those two, but you also have Lucas Van Ness in there. Maybe they don't necessarily have the utmost faith in him right now. So to have Pierce Jr. as a potential backup plan in an already stacked rotation couldn't really hurt you at that point. It just couldn't. Like, why not? You know, the Vikings hold the 24th overall pick in this draft, and with it, I have them selecting Shamar Stewart, edge rusher from Texas A&M. Now, granted, his performance in the combine as well also stood out as one of the best of that particular day, to where he also shot up draft boards exponentially. And the Vikings could honestly use something like it. They're obviously still reeling from the fact that they had to move on from Danielle Hunter, obviously, and they have not been able to find a good replacement since, in terms of true edge rushing talent. Yeah, Marcus Davenport is there, but when looking at his last season last year, I do not think that everything panned out for them how they would want things to go. Oh, well, no, he was there in 2020. Oh, boy, he was with the Lions last year. Okay, yeah, my sense of time has worked. But yeah, things like that. That just reinforces my point then. You get Davenport, then he doesn't necessarily pan out for you, and he moves on in the next offseason. So they've been in a constant cycle of just trying to find premier pass rushers, and nothing has really seemed to stick for them to this point. To get a guy in Shamar Stewart, though, who was able to pull that off, again, in terms of pure need, but also just getting a great talent, that checks both boxes out. So I could really see this happening. The Texans hold the 25th overall pick in this draft, and with it, I have them selecting Gray Zeble, offensive tackle out of North Dakota State. He has been getting so much respect from scouts, general media coverage, things like just general respect. And again, his draft profile has allowed him to shoot up draft boards towards the late first round for a good majority of these past few months, if I'm being completely honest with you. There were people originally at that time stating that the Eagles could get him. And while that might have been the case prior to this, I think that the Texans would need Zeble a little more now, after moving him to the Commanders. earlier on in the offseason. You need to be able to protect CJ Stroud's blind side. And it's going to take a whole pool of fucking picks to make that happen. I know, obviously, things on that offensive line and just in general made the problem a lot worse in terms of how much this man was sacked. But it starts there with potentially the most important position in the league, not named, quarterback. Because you quite literally have to ensure that the quarterback, who is actively not seeing that side of the pocket, is taken care of. And if he isn't, he's susceptible to what CJ Stroud went through last season. I mean, bro, literally, you want to see your franchise quarterback in the wild card game of the NFL playoffs go out essentially limping all over the fucking place. I know y'all remember how that game ended. He was getting banged up left and right like a fucking ragdoll by that Chiefs defense. Maybe they are that good, but at the same time, he could not fucking move. He couldn't get off the field. He could not move. You don't want to put your franchise guy in a situation like that again. Get an offensive lineman. Get Gray's Evan. It'll be worth your time. With the 26th overall pick, I have the Rams selecting Colston Loveland, tight end from Michigan. They also desperately need this. Tyler Higbee, we want to talk about tight ends getting phased out of an offense. Tyler Higbee has been dealing with injuries left and right. He is only getting older in age. And his production, too, I'm not going to lie, it has waned. It has waned completely. So I don't know how much longer he would truly be around for. He could be a lifer with this franchise. But again, dude, he missed 14 games last season. He has had, I guess he's never been a true killer in terms of production from the tight end spot. He's always been serviceable. But just 495 yards last season, in his last healthy season in 2023, his lowest output since 2018. And then just 66 yards in 3 games last season. I don't know. I mean, I guess as a safety valve, he might stick around. But, Colston Loveland, getting him in there as a guy that could potentially take over the mantle from Higbee, and as a player that can do essentially the same things and then some with fresher legs, it's just why not? Why not make that move? He'll be in good hands with Stafford anyways, if you do get him. As long as you don't draft a wide receiver, though, because, bro, you're set there. You're set. You don't need to do it necessarily this early. But, again, it's so deep to where, I guess if you're still keeping around, bro, they shouldn't still have Tutu Atwell on their team. But you could use an upgrade there, sure. You could find somebody to replace the hole that, I guess, Van Jefferson left. Things like that could happen later, though. Colston Loveland is a very respectable prospect. I just don't think he's the best. Slow your roll, man. Seriously. But, yeah, he'll get drafted there, in my opinion. The Ravens hold the 27th overall pick, and with it, I have them selecting McMichael Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia. It would be ideal for them to do it because they just need, again, you can never have too many edge rushers, but I have a feeling that McMichael Williams is actually going to be able to get it in there and do his job. We can't necessarily say that Odafe Owe is a bust, but at the same time, he is just so weak at generating pressure. And it hurts them so horribly. With McMichael Williams being at this spot, still being one of the best players available at this spot, it would make sense for them to go out and select another edge rusher to have in that rotation. And maybe even slowly begin to phase Odafe Owe out of there. That's how I would see this going if they select them. The Lions hold the 28th overall pick, and with that, I have them selecting Nick Scarton, edge rusher from Texas A&M. Also, another player who really benefits from a pretty solid combine performance. And not to mention, too, to learn from Zadarius Smith and also play alongside Aiden Hutchinson too. Whew. Like they would certainly be able to get Scarton to produce in this spot, especially with a healthy season from Hutchinson. But again, if push comes to shove, you get Scarton in the right position, and he could truly be able to take over some ball games for you. That's all you're really banking on here, if you are the Lions. The Commanders hold the 29th overall pick, and with it, I have them selecting Amarian Hampton, running back from North Carolina. This is also deemed as an aggressive reach because he could be drafted later in the second round, according to other mock drafts and things of that nature. But I think for a change of pace back, it would help to have Hampton here and maybe give him some time to sit under Austin Eckler, learn from him a little bit, and then also, as the season goes along, continue to ramp up his production. Because, let's be honest, as a potential third running back in this system, maybe potentially second at some point, that would be golden for them. I mean, you're going from your third running back being Jeremy McNichols last season to now having Amarian Hampton as a part of this rotation. And given the kind of offensive schemes that they already run, man, that could be quite the match. The Bills hold the 30th overall pick, and with it, I have them selecting Donovan Ejiraku, edge rusher from Boston College. He has been a name that's been getting some buzz lately, but I would think that the Bills would again just be trying to build around Greg Rousseau on that defensive end, and also account for Matt Milano in some way. Obviously, he'll still be there, but Matt Milano serves them better as a tackler and as a pass coverage guy. Given his injury last season, I don't know how he would fare in terms of being able to rush the passer. Like, that alone might force him into a spot where some of that burst is just lost. So, we'll have to see. Granted, anyways, he's had just 10.5 sacks in his career over 8 seasons. So he's never really been that anyways. But, to put in that element so that he doesn't have to be forced to put too much strain on anything would serve you well if you are the Bills. Because Milano is a pretty respectable linebacker. You want to be sure that you have him around for a little longer. Because again, the past 2 seasons, he's missed 12 and 13 games in back-to-back seasons. And a lot of that is just due to asking him to do more from a physical standpoint. And he just might not be able to make that happen at this point. The Chiefs have the 31st overall pick in the 25 NFL draft. And with it, I have them selecting Tyleik Williams, defensive lineman from the Ohio State. The fucking wrecking ball for the team. Whether it was him with JT Tuimoloau last season, Jack Sawyer last season, Michael Hall Jr. the season prior, just a rotation of D linemen coming in there. Williams has been elite and consistent year in, year out. He is just a force to be reckoned with. It is as simple as that. Now, again, this is also viewed as a reach, and teams have him dropping down to the second round. I think not. And if he does, somebody's getting a steal. Automatically. The Chiefs gotta have it. They lost Derek Nottie. They lost Tershawn Wharton. A litany of rotational pieces at the defensive tackle spot. So that would be the very first step in them being able to recuperate on that. I would say that it would make just too much sense, bro. And the Eagles hold the 32nd overall pick in this 25 draft, and with it, I have them selecting Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Now, also, too, thinking that the Eagles have lost the amount of defensive tackle talent that they have in this offseason, that they could also make that pick if Williams is still on the board. However, with that not being the case, there is obviously potential for them to take a different route. And I think that they would personally look for an upgrade over Jahan Dotson. Obviously, in the limited reps that he did have, he produced fairly well. At the same time, it feels like you could get just a little more production from a slot wide receiver. No, Emeka Egbuka can play more than that, but that's just it. As a wide receiver who can play all over the field, wherever you need him, with that kind of potential, and you're putting him in the slot against, albeit weaker cornerbacks in some cases, he would fucking toast the shit out of people on a weekly basis. I can tell you that right now. I don't think he's necessarily the fastest guy or the most athletic, but the kid works his fucking ass off. We saw it across all 4 years at Ohio State. The fact that he was buried so low initially on the depth chart at the school, only to emerge as potentially one of the best, and at some points, the very best wide receiver on the team. as a player who also, again, what he lacks in speed and more like tangible things, I suppose, he makes up for in terms of ball skills. He makes up for it in football IQ. And his route running is just like we're talking about Luther Burden III being a route runner. Go look at some of these McMichael routes. He has literally fucking made people drop to their fucking ankles. You can't necessarily expect him to command the ball. Obviously, it would go to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown most of the time. But I would keep an eye out for the Eagles' choice here. Because if Emeka Egbuka is still on the board at this spot, I think heavily that they will select him here. Before I move on from the mock draft and talk about the few developments that I have, Matthew Golden, interestingly enough, is not a part of this first round, which is pretty interesting. It is quite a travesty. I don't know. I really, this is really just, it's opinion based. That's really just how I see things spawning up. And even I recognize that, I don't know, with the way that Matthew Golden had performed, he could potentially be a person that goes in the first round. So, again, I would watch for that as well. It certainly has a great chance of happening. And if he is a player that drops to a later round, I'm also expecting whoever gets him to find themselves a fucking steal. Because that is a little egregious. But it's okay. Alright, as for some of the developments here, speaking of the Eagles, they would sign Cam Jurgens to a 4-year, $68 million deal, which makes sense. You have to have a sense of loyalty for him at that point. So I totally understand them making that move, because anyone who is willing to play through a Super Bowl with the kind of injuries he was dealing with deserves to be properly compensated when the time comes. Now, granted, if this injury had just popped up recently and they signed him to this deal, I would certainly question it. At the same time, he's already been getting the proper surgery for it, rehabilitating, so he's going to be able to come back next season in a fresh condition. And the Eagles promptly affirmed that by giving him this long-term deal. We had questions about how things are going to look without Jason Kelce being there, and he held his own in that position. He literally one of the better centers in the league last season. So this is a well-deserved deal for him. The Lions would also sign Kerby Joseph to a 4-year, $86 million contract extension. That also makes tremendous sense. Now, literally, with him doing all of what he did there in a contract year, nabbing 9 damn interceptions and leading the league, he was certainly going to get paid. I don't know if 9 interceptions can necessarily be replicated again, because that is such a high number all time. But again, a very strong season overall for a defense that was one of the better ones when fully healthy, anchored by him, holding it down at the free safety position. For his contributions, he was granted an All-Pro first team selection. And he's been consistent even with this being a peak year for him, he had 4 interceptions in both of his first 2 seasons, giving him a grand total of 17 in just 3 years. He also had 83 tackles in 24, along with 82 in his first 2 seasons. So he's been doing this. But this kind of spike, that rapid spike in overall production, you gotta reward that. He's only 24 years old, too. The future looks very bright at that position for the Lions. Simply put, he's also been a player that has gotten a little versatility going as well, which I think, honestly, the Lions have come to favor because, Brian Branch also was considered a safety coming out of college. Now he's just playing a variety of fucking positions on that defense, whether it be safety, whether it be corner, slot corner. They've done the same thing with Kerby Joseph, and when all of them were healthy and a go, they were fucking some of these offenses up. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. Straight like that. On to some more unfortunate news here. Bears legend Steve McMichael passed away yesterday night at the age of 76. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in, I believe, 2023. He had been fighting the ALS condition for years to this point, since I believe 2021. And there was actually a report prior to those news last night. Oh, he got inducted in 24. Okay. Yeah, what? Okay, I'm tripping. But yeah, he had been dealing with that condition for years, and there was actually a report that prefaced that unfortunate piece of news that stated he would be taken to hospice care. So it's just a bad situation overall. I mean, that would literally entail that he was on the move, and then that just ended up happening to him. It's, it is certainly a sad moment in time for all of those who knew him as, a potential husband, brother, son, etc. And even when you look at guys that he played with, I'm sure they're feeling this right now as well. So you just have to send your condolences to those people. Also, some news would come through earlier today that just like Tyler Lockett would finally find a home. Oh my goodness, I can't speak. The Titans would sign him on a 1-year deal. So it's really happening. He's legitimately going to be playing football with a team not based in Seattle. It is just quite the reality to confront. I don't even know what to think of it. I mean, a 1-year deal won't hurt them. But at the same time, how many times are you going to settle for short-term deals with older players? Would be my question. Obviously, Tyler Lockett has still got so much. I just know he's got so much left to provide for the game. I know it. So he's definitely going to be able to get in there and produce for them. But, bro, this has become a pattern for the Titans. I mean, it feels like you cannot develop wide receivers properly anyways. Because, bro, Treylon Burks with Josh Weil hasn't necessarily done anything. Nick Westbrook-Akina was on the right path, but still wasn't considered too elite. and respectable enough in your organization for you to even want to keep him this offseason, which is why he ended up moving on to the Dolphins. And then in terms of getting guys in free agency, obviously Calvin Ridley's been fine. But then you look back and realize that you just had DeAndre Hopkins on a short-term contract. And things did not go according to plan at all for him. Granted, he was stuck with Will Levis. I know. I get it. But, I feel like that's a good start, but I don't know. The Titans, over the course of this draft, might seriously want to consider drafting someone younger later in the draft. Because, let's be honest, your likely pick is going to find, going out to find a new quarterback at the number 1 overall spot. You would be insane to draft any wide receiver in this draft. I don't care how good they can be. No one is even getting anywhere near the top 10, let alone top 5, top 3. No, it's not happening. They just need to get younger at that position, because settling for all of these rentals ultimately does not really get you anywhere. It is literally just settling for something quick and consumable rather than playing the long game and trying to develop someone for the future. Again, a lot of these wide receivers too, compared to Treylon Burks' draft, do actually show a lot of promise. So you should probably consider that. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.